Chapter 1. The Biblical Idea of Revelation. Article Revelation from the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia, James Orr, General Editor, Volume 4, pages 2573 to 2582, published Chicago, 1915, by the Howard Severance Company. 1. The Nature of Revelation. The religion of the Bible is a frankly supernatural religion. By this is not meant merely that, according to it, all men as creatures live, move, and have their being in God. It is meant that, according to it, God has intervened extraordinarily in the course of the sinful world's development for the salvation of men otherwise lost. In Eden, the Lord God had been present with sinless men in such a sense as to form a distinct element in his social environment. Genesis chapter 3, verse 8. This intimate association was broken up by the fall. But God did not therefore withdraw himself from concernment with men. Rather, he began at once a series of interventions in human history by means of which man might be rescued from his sin and, despite it, brought to the end destined for him. These interventions involved the segregation of a people for himself, by whom God should be known, and whose distinction should be that God should be nigh unto them, as he was not to other nations. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 7, Psalm 145, verse 18. But this people was not permitted to imagine that it owed its segregation to anything in itself fitted to attract or determine the divine preference. No consciousness was more poignant in Israel than that Jehovah had chosen it, not it him, and that Jehovah's choice of it rested solely on his gracious will. Nor was this people permitted to imagine that it was for its own sake alone that it had been singled out to be the sole recipient of the knowledge of Jehovah. It was made clear from the beginning that God's mysteriously gracious dealing with it had as its ultimate end the blessing of the whole world. Genesis chapter 12, verses 2 and 3, Genesis chapter 17, verses 4, 5, 6, and 16, Genesis chapter 18, verse 18, Genesis chapter 22, verse 18, compare Romans chapter 4, verse 13. The bringing together again of the divided families of the earth under the glorious reign of Jehovah, and the reversal of the curse under which the whole world lay for its sin. Genesis chapter 12, verse 3. Meanwhile, however, Jehovah was known only in Israel. To Israel, God showed his word and made known his statutes and judgments, and after this fashion he dealt with no other nation, and therefore none other knew his judgments. Psalm 147, verses 19 and following. Accordingly, when the hope of Israel, who was also the desire of all nations, came, his own lips unhesitatingly declared that the salvation he brought, though of universal application, was from the Jews. John chapter 4, verse 22. And the nations to which this salvation had been made known are declared by the chief agent in its proclamation to them to be, meanwhile, far off, having no hope, and without God in the world. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 12. Because they were aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenant of the promise. The religion of the Bible thus announces itself not as the product of men's search after God, if haply they may feel after him and find him, but as the creation in men of the gracious God, forming a people for himself, that they may show forth his praise. In other words, the religion of the Bible presents itself as distinctively a revealed religion. Or rather, to speak more exactly, it announces itself as the revealed religion, as the only revealed religion, and sets itself as such over against all other religions, which are represented as all products, in a sense, in which it is not, of the art and device of man.